Today, it's Edwin's Monday evening property rant. Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Well, latest post covering finance and property news with a distinctively Australian flavour. It's Monday evening, it's Edwin. And Edwin, we are in interesting times, aren't we?
Well, Martin, we are very much into interesting times, and can they get even more interesting is the question. But I just want to let you know, Martin, I got jabbed on the weekend. 2 jabs, an uppercut, a left cross, and a couple of straights. Got through the guide. I don't know if you can see the bit of a black eye there.
Okay. Yeah. No, I can see that. Yes. Okay. Well, we will assume that was in the sporting arena rather than in the property arena.
Look, no matter where you go, no matter where you turn, it seems like people are getting more and more angry, Martin. You just got to keep your guard. You just got to keep your guard up, haven't you? It's crazy times, and as we said, can they get any crazier? And look, one thing for sure is it's going to get more interesting between last week and this week. Look at what's happened. I mean, the ADF's now involved. We're going to get choppers flying down. Where it's like it's a prequel of the prequel to the sequel of Mad Max, Martin. It's Armageddon.
Well, yeah, and you and I both believe that this is not something where we are very close to the end, right? We're right in the midst of it now, and this is going to grind on for quite some time. And what's so interesting is, the LGAs that are currently most locked down in and around Sydney, right? They have some particular characteristics. They're quite multinational, they're quite international, a lot of migrants, but also they are the engine room for most of Sydney, most of the blue-collar workers, most of those people that keep the lights on and keep everything running. So that's one of the reasons why we've got this rather different dynamic, right? From lift cleaning and from all the other stuff that people do. This is a real interesting question.
Well, it is, Martin, and this is what we just discussed earlier on, and that's the blue-collar workers are mainly coming from these areas, and right now they're unless they're essential services, they can't move, they can't operate their businesses, which begs the question, and that is what's happening with the strata complexes, maintenance of the lifts, general cleaning, and maintenance of the common areas, the gardens, the rubbish bins for that matter. Who's taking them out? And who's putting the bins back in? And if these continual lockdowns and rolling lockdowns that are going on, people are going to get very sick and tired. It's only a matter of time until sooner than later, then bus drivers and every other service, they're just going to throw their hands up in the air and say, well, you know what, we've got to look after our family first and foremost before we look after all the people in the eastern suburbs and the North Shore and every other town or parts that aren't locked down. That people seem to be better off in terms of economically and also with regards to access to facilities. So these are the questions, and hence the reason why I'm saying and that there's more and more aggression out there. There's a lot of fear. Just brings out a lot of other emotions with it, and one of them certainly is anger.
Yeah, well, I'm seeing that, and I'm also seeing inconsistency. So, we've got construction sector people working back down here again, right? So I just sort of had a quick look, and it's interesting that a few of them were wearing masks, but most of them weren't. And when you actually look at the numbers on the side, where they come from, the address and what have you, they weren't locals. So they've travelled more than 10K to be able to actually work on site down here. So once again, we seem to have got the priorities a bit wrong when in fact the construction sector seemed to be able to drift around from other parts of Sydney and even, in and out and around the restricted areas to just keep the construction engine going.
Yeah, look, and this is the ongoing issues, and hence the reason why people are fearful, people are scared, people are confused. Most of all, you and I, become confused over the different mandates and the different rules that come out on a daily basis. We have to look out for our industry as to what we can do, what we can't do. People are so confused, and these are people that have got a above average understanding of the English language, and but yet you got to ask, what about the people that don't understand the language? That don't, English isn't the first language, but rather is the second. They live alone. Interesting how what some of the people are doing across the WeChat chattering platforms, how they get along, because there are elderly people stuck at home. There are people that with disabilities, with health issues that are stuck at home. They can't do anything. They can't go to the shops. They can't eat. They literally can't go out of their homes. But it's interesting how, as much as we see a lot on social media, the bad side of humanity to an extent, and that's amplified. But what we also get to see is how a lot of people come to the party, and how there's a lot of community support within the individual communities of supporting as I said, the elderly, the ones that are unable to get out, infirmed, or have some sort of disability. But there's a lot of people that are falling through the cracks, Martin, and that is, of this week there was a young star from Home and Away, I believe, just committed suicide because he got a job, but must have been going through a lot of issues. He was happy about getting a job, and next thing you know, 2 days later, the construction industry is locked down. And this is the concerning thing about the flip-flopping of the government, the unclear mandates. It's a rule for thee, but not for me. Where you see the people have to take pay cuts. They're not getting paid. Businesses are shutting down. But politicians from all fields, local, state, and federal. I mean, let's start looking at what they're earning as well. So we're not really all in together, are we?
No, we're not. Well, there's a very nice quote from a very well-known novel that says it's the best of times and it's the worst of times, right? And that's about what I'm seeing at the moment. There are some people doing it quite well, thank you very much. There are a lot of others who are really, really struggling. And there is this polarization, this, haves and have-nots, the people really badly locked down and those who are less locked down. I have to say, I scratch my head thinking, if I was designing a system to try and effectively communicate to everybody and to provide leadership, I wouldn't be doing it like this. But there again, maybe I'm not a politician, so that's probably why. And what about the auctions? I mean, online auctions are now the thing, except they're not really, are they?
No, well, that's correct, and that's just monitoring the auctions that are online over the weekend. It's rather interesting to see how obviously from the last lockdown, from last year, when a lot of the auctions went online around the same time last year, and it was we were talking about it then, how that zing, that fear of missing out, and that whole emotional side of things sort of fall to the wayside to an extent, and a lot of agents aren't liking them. They're trying to get sales before auction because take away a lot of the emotion, Martin, and you also take away a good 5-10% of the value of a property that would otherwise sell when there's a lot of emotion flowing around, and you've got a crowd in the actual property itself, where it creates that sense of urgency. So you're taking away all those key elements that create that emotional frenzy where people just forget, start making bids with more emotionally than logically, and start paying way and well over the odds.
Absolutely. Well, it's interesting listening to a few people who's I've spoken to them quite recently who've decided to withdraw their property from the market at the moment because they don't think that they're going to get a reasonable offer at the moment. And interestingly, it's not just the high rise, it's also even some houses. So I think we're going to see supply continuing to go down, as we commented the other day. So interesting times. Then the last thing, just in terms of our sort of pre-article waffle, is some of the platforms are banning some of the big names like Sky for a week, for example.
Yeah, like not only Sky, but now my understanding is also that Tinder is being deplatformed from the Apple Store for spruiking misinformation with regard to vaccines and the like. I mean, it's like, well, look, I don't know what sort of misinformation they're propagating, Martin, but it's the Victorian government are telling us that it's in the Canadian government, as I shared, we talked about it last year. They were saying, hey, look, it's okay to get together, have a little bit of a sexual encounter, as long as you're wearing a mask. So I don't understand it. We're in protection, so I really don't understand what the problem is, man.
No, well, they should have swiped left rather than right, or right rather than left, maybe. Then I don't know, but no, it's just totally weird. Let's go to the articles, because there's a lot of happening actually, and the one that I thought was really interesting, with all of these overseas people coming back to Australia with those special visas, as it were. The top end of the market, the people with money in their pockets, ready to buy in.
Yeah, the Sydney Morning Herald puts out the article, 15,000 rich foreigners given visas to Australia during the pandemic. Again, our WeChat chatters, and we've discussed it at length, even to late last year, how the people were preparing, and particularly in the medical field, and how the regulations with access to PR, permanent residency visas, were being diluted, so that the easiest pathway is through the medical profession. But now this article comes out, but we can add tens more thousands of that of those in the medical profession that may not necessarily be classified as rich listers. And we can only think about as to what type of property these people are going to, when they come in, what type of property they're going to buy, which is obviously our Monday evening rants. It's all about property, and you've got to start thinking as to what type of property these people are going to buy. I can assure you one thing, and that is across the social media platforms that we monitor from overseas as well as locally, they're not going to be buying apartments. They've got their eye on homes, freestanding homes with that space, and that's because they want to obviously take advantage of the great lifestyle that we have, which is an unfortunate dream that many locals won't get to have, is to own that piece of land for themselves as to live in, and to grow their family. So it's interesting, but all I can say is that as home listings go down, overall listings have been going down, and year on year from first week August 2020 to first week to now, the difference is almost 50% of listings for homes, freestanding homes in the Sydney metro area, Martin, which is really alarming. I think it's the lowest number that I've seen for freestanding home listings on the domain portal for the last 15 years.
Absolutely, yes. This is uniquely weird at the moment. And in fact, of course, there was an article relating to Melbourne median house prices that showed in some suburbs they're actually gone backwards.
Yeah, look, they have. And this is Melbourne has, I believe, just over 1,000 suburbs, 1,035 or thereabouts. Suburbs, 1,025 in the greater Melbourne region, and the author in the real estate site writes that 27 or so suburbs actually dipped in value from last year. But that's, to me, that wasn't it's neither here nor there. And when you start looking deeper into where the suburbs are and what the makeup of property is and so forth. But what was more interesting to me in this particular article, Martin, is that 400 suburbs closer to the city, actually only had 10 properties or thereabouts sold. The question that begs to be asked is, what the hell were the selling agents doing? How did they survive other than pulling down equity from principal places of residence or picking up another, the second or third credit card in order to keep businesses going? That's, to me, that really sends alarm bells. And again, with the listing numbers that are on market currently in Sydney, again, we've talked over and over again. It's when you start looking at the figures, the actual figures of selling agents in Sydney is around about 14 to 15,000 selling agents. That's not including property managers and ancillary staff. In the Sydney region, when you include all that, you're talking about 24,000 real estate agents, 24 to 27,000 in total. In New South Wales, it's about 55 to 60,000 registered. So there's a lot. In Melbourne, generally runs at about 2/3 the number of people in the profession that you would otherwise find in the Sydney greater region as well. So they're the numbers that are of interest. Now, when you add to that what's happening with the marketing revenues, you can only imagine how much the portals, the main portals, Domain and REA, are hemorrhaging. So once again, it comes back to my theory that sooner than later, one of these two portals is going to eat up the industry that actually built these big beasts and go out with Purple Bricks 2.0 scenario.
Yeah, well, we've been talking about this for some time, and it's certainly looking more and more likely that's what's going to happen. Interestingly, Edwin, one of the other observations is that the house price growth, as reported by CoreLogic, was reasonably strong, but in fact, it's tapering, isn't it? The rate of change of growth is easing back. And in fact, Tim Lawless in his article today highlighted the affordability question as one of the reasons why the growth was slowing.
That's correct, but I think it should have been more to the point of it's affordability to locals. But when you've got these rich listers coming in, and when you've got other people that are waiting on the offshore ready to come in, it's going to look, they can afford it. So I can see that it's going to put a lot more pressure. When I say pressure, in terms of upward pressure for freestanding homes, and that pressure is going to be felt even more so in the outskirts of the cities, as well as in regional areas, because these people are happy to commute 1 to 1.5 hours, because that's what they're used to commuting anyway in the States. A lot of my relatives actually, the time from when they leave home to when they used to get to their to their offices was anywhere between 50 minutes to 1.5 hours drive. So these are people that are okay to commute, and they will make the sacrifice because obviously they're going to get the much better lifestyle that they're experiencing overseas.
Yes, absolutely. And this working from home stuff is quite significant, right? Because it means that people can perhaps live slightly further away and buy larger houses further out, as we've been discussing previously. But there's also another little trend which is worth calling, and that is that we've seen that some of those investor types who would have invested previously in shops and other commercial premises are now saying, well, hang on a moment, they're not working, particularly when there's such low footfall and low momentum in retail, for example, and a lot of empty shops, that they're looking now for residential investment instead.
Well, that's correct, and that's being our WeChat chatterers, Martin, that have alluded to that. As early as 8-10 months ago, we were seeing the trends in the chatter that was flowing. And look, the Asian community is a community that in all my life I've never heard of Chinese people or Asian people of the ones that I've met, the ones that I know, that have been prepared to sell commercial property or sell any type of investment at a loss in order to move into another one. And this has certainly made that happen, which is what we've been sharing for 8 or just over 8 months already, because of what the chatter, the WeChat chatterers have been telling us, Martin. And that's a very significant shift of asset class. Now, obviously, we monitor that on WeChat in investment groups here in Australia, in Sydney predominantly. But if it's happening with those communities, I would imagine The same thing, would be happening with the Italian communities, the Greek communities, and other communities that were otherwise focused on setting up their own little businesses, setting up the cafes, small restaurants, takeaway shops, milk bars, and even bigger restaurants. But obviously, as they get swallowed up by the bigger corporations, well, obviously that they can do the deliveries, that they are allowed to do deliveries, which is another fiasco. You can't run your own takeaway place and do your own deliveries if you're in these lockdowns. But if you're a big corporation, you can. It's just topsy turvy stuff. So these are the trends, and we're going to obviously see more of that in the local market, because rental incomes in homes, particularly with freestanding homes, where there's a lot of focus for the local investors that are moving away from the commercial premises and businesses. They're getting, the rental returns are becoming more and more healthier by the week, and the longer these lockdowns persist and keep on rolling along, the more return they're going to get on that particular investment.
Yeah, and just to highlight, we're talking here about freestanding homes in certain areas. We're not talking about high-rise apartments where the rental yields are still dropping like a stone, and where, in fact, vacancy rates are, if anything, worse now, particularly now with all the lockdowns in and around Sydney.
Well, nobody wants to live in the high rises, do they?
Yeah, exactly.
If you can't be, if you got to socially distance, how the heck do you socially distance in this bloody 1.2 by 1.2 meter lifts that they put in high rises that are accommodating, there's three lift wells accommodating 300 apartments. It's insanity, Martin. It's absolute insanity.
Yep, and it's been going on for some time, and I think a lot of people are realising that those investment properties in the high-rise sector were not good investments, and certainly all the maths that I'm seeing suggests that's going to continue for some time, not just in Sydney, but in a lot of other places too. Now, what about the last one then? Vaccine passports. This is one which, of course, we're going to hear a lot more of going forward, but, the article on Sky suggested, well, you're going to need a vaccine passport to watch live sport, for example. Thin end of the wedge, in my view.
It's, my first thought when I saw this article, although I try to read as many articles and see how it would affect the property industry, but you also read a lot of other articles because of the nature of what's happening around us all the time. So this was rather interesting, and this is why I'm saying people are going to be more inclined to look for bigger properties or bigger dwellings, because look, let's face it, it costs an arm and a leg without the bloody pandemic to go to watch footy anyway. Take a small family, and it's a round trip of about $200 for the day. How many people could afford that before the bloody pandemic as it is? So it's this is just it's just a farce. People are turning more and more away from watching sports live and staying at home and having the pleasures and the luxury of staying at home. I mean, public transport, even before the pandemic, was a shit show in most cases, let alone now. And as the urban sprawls come about, and all these other new areas have had their subdivisions gone up, and no real infrastructure been put in place, you've got to walk. If you do catch public transport in order to go to the SCG or ANZ or whatever other stadium they're building or haven't built, or Parramatta or whatever else, it's a 4-hour round trip, because you got to walk most of the time to get to a bus stop, to get to the train station, to get to the bloody centre itself. So it's farcical in one sense, but it does start to they've already obviously start to create these scenarios where we're going to be needing these bloody vaccine passports to get into places and get my question is, in light of our Monday evening property rants, is how they're going to monitor and what's going to be acceptable for overseas investors, future overseas investors coming into Australia, or people coming into Australia, to buy property, with student visas, with work visas, temporary work visas, and the like. What vaccine passport is going to be acceptable and not acceptable? And the second part of that question, Martin, is perhaps because you're a very wise man, is how are we going to know what a fraudulent one looks like and what it doesn't when to date they haven't worked out all the bullshit certificates and accolades that people have presented in order to say that they are certified accountants and certified acupuncturists and massage therapists and all this sort of stuff in order to get into Australia. I mean, go figure.
Absolutely. Well, a lot of questions there, and I guess I'm quite concerned about the concept of vaccine passports and more controls on our movements and all those things. Right? I just think we're losing the plot here if we're not very, very careful. Of course, in other countries, they're doing even more so. And in fact, in the UK, they quietly snuck a change in their app relating to the vaccines and things to make it now a passport, so that effectively you can, it wasn't originally set up as that, but they've now sort of plugged it in. So, watch this space, I suppose. And look, just quickly on the viruses, China's got another cycle of lockdowns, which is perhaps surprising because they've been quite good at pouncing on things until now, but it looks like it might be getting out of control.
Well, our contacts there and the WeChat chatters there, tell us the last report I got was there was about 17 regions that have under strict lockdowns once again. They've certainly got the hands full not only with the virus but also the floods in the center of China. They've got a lot of other issues there, and so. But yes, there's definitely a heightened concern as to the Delta 2 now virus, and as I said, that they in the labs they haven't worked out what would even slow down the labna that they've been frantically trying to do something about as well before it starts to get to the shores. Interestingly enough, the labna is from Latin America, and the great US of A has got the borders open for the Latinos. So who knows, mate? We'll probably know how that plays out over in the USA quicker than what we'll see it playing out in China, Martin. But it is rather interesting. But the interesting thing there is the dynamics and what the WeChat chatters are sharing with us, and obviously what we're monitoring there is the fact that people have also moved away from the city regions, and they're commuting 2 to 3 hours each way, Martin, to go to work in some cities. So they prefer to move away, commute, to go into work this is on a daily basis, not on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, because obviously they've got very, very strict restrictions as to who can stay overnight and who can't, who can come into work and not, a lot stricter than us. But people are opting to travel so that they can have their secure home, the piece of real estate that they can call home, that they can look after their family, and that they can basically protect themselves from what's happening around them. And this is what, and those changes are only going to materialize more and more here in Australia, as we've been seeing it, as we've seen this shifting sands moving along. So I can only see that that's going to be reflected here. And again, with the people that are ready to come over, that have already got PR, and I'm not talking about just the rich listers that have been reported on the Sydney Morning Herald, but many other thousands, tens of thousands that have already got theirs through the laxing of the regulations with respect to the easiest pathway to obtain PR in Australia being the medical profession, and what that encapsulates now is going to be interesting how it all plays out.
And what about the WeChat chats? Do they have anything to say about the clampdown in tutoring sites, which has been a big issue in China, right?
Yeah, look, they do. Look, the mainstream narrative there is the reasons. One of them being that They want to they want to close the gap between the haves and the have-nots. In other words, the middle class, the upper middle class, the middle class, upper middle class, and the wealthy that could have access to these platforms, and obviously the bridge the gap between that and the poor. So you eliminate you eliminate that service, because obviously being an overseas service, and one that would cost a lot of money, because obviously they're in a push and a drive for that third child policy. So they're trying to say to they're saying to the people, well, you can't have this. You're not going to spend your money on that. So what we want you to spend your money on now is go out there and procreate and have more kids, and maybe they'll take up Tinder and other versions of Tinder, Martin. What do you reckon?
So possibly, but interestingly, those tutoring platforms, which, as you say, were actually overseas, right? They hit the NASDAQ very hard over the last week, right? Significant falls, 30, 40% in some cases. So it's interesting how the decisions taken in China are having, knock-on effects in other indices, including in the US with the NASDAQ.
Yeah, well, look, that's the mainstream narrative, or one of the reasons why they're supposed to have done this, but the real reason is that China is slowly decoupling from different industries and different services from the rest of the world. That's on the other side of the of that coin. And we're seeing it more and more, and and it's as again you and I spoke about when we broke the news with regards to they began to take dibs on the iron ore deposits in African nations, and although iron ore is still relatively highly priced, but sooner than later, we're not, unless we start finding those other buyers. China's going to once as their mines crank up, more and more. Obviously, we're going to have issues there as well. So it's a whole day of decoupling from a lot of services and industries, and that basically, I can only imagine the iron ore is going up.
Yeah, and the iron price has slipped off its highs, and I was reading something over the weekend suggesting that further falls ahead, so it will be significant for us if that transpires. But let's move on now to just a couple of tips, right? Because a lot of people watch this rant, Edwin, for your tips towards the end, and we don't disappoint them, do we?
No, look, it's and hopefully, hopefully the people take this on board, and this is predominantly, as we've been focusing a lot on the rental side of the industry, the rental side of my industry, that is seldom looked at or falls by the wayside with many things, and and that's more to the point. It's the renters themselves that make up a big chunk of of what goes on with our industry, and these are families, livelihoods that the forgotten part of the industry, as I say. So look, my tip for this week is if you can, try and negotiate a 24 to 36 month lease. More so if you're in a freestanding home. And let's go down the pecking order. If you're in a freestanding home, a townhouse, a villa, or even in a very boutique or a small 3-story walk-up apartment block. In other words, in space where you're not overcrowded. More so to the point is obviously the rentals of the freestanding homes. And I say this because there's I feel with what we've been discussing with the industry groups and the industry office owners that I'm involved with, that I chat with regularly, is there's going to be, now that the prices are so high, now that the prices can you basically, you've supply and demand, the supply is very, very, very low. The demand is high for freestanding homes. People are going to start offloading these rentals, are going to start putting these rental properties on the market sooner than later, and more so. and particularly the homes that require a lot of maintenance, Martin. And this is they're going to get a top dollar for a shit shack that that requires a lot of maintenance. And quite frankly, as an investor, why wouldn't you sell right now at the peak of the market? And I can see now as the mainstream media start talking about the the market prices plateauing. They're slowing down. Growth is slowing down. Yes, there is going to be an uptick, a bit more of an uptick, but things are going to slow down. When those messages start filtering through the mainstream, investors are going to get itchy wallets, itchy fingers, and they are going to start putting their properties on the market. So, which means that if you in a home, a townhouse or a villa or a small complex, you're going to have to look for something either smaller or further away in order to meet your needs, more so that those around comfort and security.
Absolutely, and all I can certainly confirm that investment story. I've had a few people that I've been speaking with over the last few weeks in these one-on-one conversations we have, and it's a consistent story now. They've done the numbers, and when they've done the numbers, they realise just what a rotten investment it is, and then they do the numbers on what they're going to have to pay to sort it out or renovate it or fix it up or whatever, right? It is a really, really complex situation. Many people are facing down the barrel of significant losses. Now, obviously, some cases they can offset it against tax and other things, but for a lot of people, this property investment lark has turned out to be an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, and that would be in the strata complexes. But right now, in terms of the freestanding homes, it's if you look at any time, if you can point at any time that to get out, now's the time. Now would be a great time to get out. You may wait for the extra 5-10% in certain parts of Sydney, and I'm obviously speaking about Sydney in the Sydney metro region. There are some areas that yes, properties are going to go up a lot higher, but for different reasons and for many other reasons that we're not going to get into discussions with now, but just the nature of it, because I know that a lot of renters, a lot of young families love that freedom, love that space, love they still want to have a backyard. And can you imagine, Martin, putting all these young families or growing families into 2-bedroom apartments in high-rise developments that are badly built? I mean, the numbers say it all, Martin. The week-on-week numbers that I've shared with you with the first week of August 2020 and the first week of August 2021. You only have to look at that. Last year we were in a lockdown, in a very tight lockdown. All of Sydney was in a lockdown. We didn't know what was going to go on. Listing numbers were actually going up, prices were going down. But now it's a different beast that we're dealing with. Listing numbers have almost tanked by 50%. And prices are just in certain parts of Sydney just climbing. So now, obviously, is an ideal opportunity for property investors that have held homes for 20, 30 years that have been looking to get out, and where homes need a lot of maintenance. They're going to get top dollar for shit boxes.
Yeah, and that's the point, isn't it? Timing is everything, and if you're in the right part of the market, might be a good idea. If you're in another part of the market, you've missed the boat probably. Edwin, I really appreciate your conversation as always. Very interesting conversations, very interesting points you make. And I guess we'll do it all again next week. Before I go, how are the carrots?
Oh, look, they're being sidelined for a little bit. I can't do much with that at the moment. I've got certain things I can do and I can't do. I thought I could do a bit of sparring, but obviously, I reaped the rewards. But it is what it is. But look, who knows, Martin? Who knows what's going to happen? Who knows what's going to happen between now and next week? I mean, shit, there's so much going on. The ADF on patrol. I can look. I'm just seeing this picture of tanks coming out across a bridge. The maybe maybe the cavalry will gather again at the Anzac intersection there at where the M5 and the M2, M7, M4, Spaghetti Junction. Maybe they'll gather there again. Who knows, Martin? Who knows what will happen? Are we going to get the bombers dropping leaflets for open auction inspections? I don't know. I really don't know.
Well, what we know is that whatever we predict is we're going to be probably not right anyway, because there are so many uncertain things, right? To old Rumsfeld's unknown unknowns. Well, there's a lot of unknown unknowns at the moment, but we'll be back next week to explore them further. Edwin, I appreciate your time as always.
Look, one thing for sure, Martin, is that that we just got to stay positive. You got to stay positive. Keep on working harder. It's not going to get easier. We said last year that 2021 was going to be head down, tail up, work hard, because 2022, that is when it all starts to unravel. And if you're not ready for 2022, if you're not getting ready for 2022, well, then you're going to be caught with your pants down.
Yeah, exactly right. Edwin, we'll see you next week. Keep safe and take care in the meantime.
Cheers, Martin.
Cheers. Bye.